I've always been a fan of all things horror, but horror games are the only medium of horror that can consistently scare the crap out of me. There's one game that stands out as scarier than any other I've played, and here's the thing, it's not even a horror game. Move over Amnesia and Silent Hill, the scariest game of all time isn't about vampires or haunted animatronics, it's about this alien playing the banjo. Stay with me on this. At this point, most people know about Outer Wilds, if not played it for themselves. It's a mystery adventure game where you go around the solar system and discover how this universe works and the secrets of a past civilization that used to live there. You die, come back, and repeat that loop again to learn more and try new things. On first glance, that isn't very horrifying, but let me tell you that you are so wrong about that. I'm going to show you why this is the scariest game I've ever played, but I'm not just going to list off a bunch of things that freak me out. I'm going to put you in the same position I was in for my first playthrough, and in so doing, show how just 2 minutes of gameplay encapsulate just how horrific Outer Wilds can be. You start the game by waking up by the fire and see a beautiful green planet above, along with something happening. An explosion? Something firing off? You don't know, and it's not super consequential, because if you look at the fire, you can make roasted marshmallows and burn them. Fuck. But it's alright, you have infinite marshmallows. What horror game would ever give you infinite marshmallows? You go around your small village and learn a bit about the environment and how to play the game. You test out your piloting skills on a remote control spaceship. As you can see, you nailed it. Then you test your jetpacking abilities in the zero-G test area. As you can see, you nailed it again. Pass by some death gems, play hide and seek, and finally stop by the local museum, a monument to the curiosity of your people, your drive to explore and go beyond yourselves. You get the launch codes, have a weird mind meld moment with the statue, go to your full-size spaceship and put on your suit. Now, you're ready to go. Finally, you take off. You look at which planets you can visit and are immediately interested in this broken, thorny world called the Dark Bramble. You arrive. As you go into its foggy depths, there are lights in the distance. You move slowly. Visibility is extremely limited, and as you get closer and closer to one of those lights, you realize that it's a giant anglerfish monstrosity, and nope, out of there. No, sir, not dealing with that right now. This is scary, overtly so, but this isn't why this is the scariest game of all time, because this isn't actually the scariest planet. You decide that you want nothing to do with the Dark Bramble, so you set your eyes on the planet you saw when waking up, Giant's Deep. It is the largest planet, and you're interested to see what's going on there. You travel to the planet, finally getting used to the controls for your ship, and you slow down as you reach the gas giant. You don't know how close or far the ground will be, perhaps it's a gaseous storm the whole way through, and you don't want to immediately crash your ship at full speed. You go through the atmosphere cautiously, probably slower than you should, and that just builds the suspense and anticipation for what you see. And this is where we start our 2 minutes of horror, because as you pass through the fog, you are immediately hit with a overwhelmed by the sheer scale of everything. Endless water fills your vision, and as you pull up on the controls, it just keeps going. This planet is too big, and upon it are tornadoes that dwarf your size. You avoid them to the best of your ability, knowing deep down that the storm could tear you and your ship apart if you don't keep your distance. When faced with things this large, I think it's a natural instinct to, in our awe, try to take it all in. Just try to get a grasp of this enormous thing in front of us. But we cannot fathom entities of this magnitude. We can take in its features and small parts, but the totality eludes us. The mind tries and fails to understand it, and every moment we fail to understand is a moment ripe for anxiety and panic to set in. We naturally fear the unknown, and things this large are not just unknown, but unknowable. Another terrifying element of the immeasurably large is the sheer power and grandiose force they hold. We are used to our environment being relatively unchangeable, only ever altering in significant ways through catastrophic forces. But entities on this scale can so easily reshape our unchanging surroundings. It doesn't need to be malicious or intentional to be disastrous. If Godzilla's tail swipes haphazardly into your home, then you lose everything you know. If a megastructure buckles due to circumstance, then it is an irreparable disaster. Within the power of these great things, we see a mirror of our smallness. We recognize just how minuscule and how fragile we are. Our scale of consideration vastly changes. Everything that felt so real and important and sturdy now feels so weak. This is what it's like to face the sublime head-on in all of its awesome and terrifying grandeur. And so, within 30 seconds of arriving on this planet, you know one thing. You are small, insignificant, fragile. You finally land on one of the few islands. It feels much more proportional to you than the rest of the planet, although the increased gravity makes walking and jumping noticeably harder. You begin to look around, but before you have time to meaningfully investigate, before you can see what this island holds, you realize that one of those tornadoes is coming right for you. You pray for it to veer course, but it doesn't. You don't have time to get back in your ship, so you brace for impact, unsure of what comes next. You expect to be lifted off the island, thrown miles away, but instead, you stay on the island as the tornado comes. You barely have time to process. It isn't that the tornado failed to lift you up. It lifted the whole island beneath you and threw you into the air, past the clouds, past the atmosphere itself, and into... You are in space. Removed from the safety of your ship, you can reach out and touch the void. You see black nothingness going on forever, only broken by the dying stars light years away. It reminds me of one of the most terrifying photos in humanity's history, the photo of the first untethered spacewalk. This horrifies me, to be in the void in such a raw and vulnerable way. In this place, or perhaps this non-place, you are detached from everything. There's nothing to hold on to, nothing to even reach out for. You are falling, not falling down or falling towards something, simply falling. And there's so little you can do about it. You are alone, physically, cosmically, in every sense possible. You are alone. There's a reason that horror movies place their victims in the middle of nowhere, perhaps a cabin in the woods. Any hope that someone is there to save you is gone. They don't know you're in danger, and even if they did, what could they reasonably do? After all, in space, no one can hear you scream. But there's a third level of detachment. Beyond the physical and the social, there's the detachment from yourself. You are deprived of all of your senses. In the void, there's nothing to see, nothing to hear, nothing to taste or smell or touch. There is only you. And humans do not do well in solitary confinement without any external stimuli. Without external stimuli, there is no meaningful differentiation between the self and the other. The mind grows desperate, creates its own stimulation, descends into madness and hallucinations. In the void, you are left all alone with nothing more than your terror. Now, you know two things. One, you are small, insignificant, fragile. Two, you are alone. So very alone. Thankfully, this nightmare of being trapped in the void doesn't last too long. Just as you begin your plan to try and find your ship and fly away, the planet's gravity begins to pull the island back down, reclaiming it. But this isn't going to be a soft landing. It's going to hit hard, and it won't be stopped immediately, which means that upon impact, you are going to be plunged into the... Feeling of weightlessness is replaced by pressure on all sides as you sink into the waters of this endless ocean. Deeper and deeper as the planet swallows you whole. The vastness of the green waters is staggering. Being submerged in the water can quickly become claustrophobic. Even if you are blessed with a submarine, you can feel trapped, the pressure always pushing in. And somehow, that is preferable to being in immediate contact with the water. There are strange and terrible creatures that lie in the deep, and when you are in the water, you are in their domain. You do not belong in this space. This place isn't meant for you. Worse still, underwater, you are rendered breathless. You can desperately flail, but with little hope. You need relief. You need to breathe. But you know that if you do, if and when you give in to all the warning signs your brain is lighting up, that will be the end. And now, at the end of these 2 minutes, you know 3 things. 1, you are small, insignificant, fragile. 2, you are alone. And 3, you cannot breathe. Eventually, you rise back up, finally able to breathe again. On my first playthrough, I continued exploring Giant's Deep a bit more, but decided rather quickly that I'd prefer to see other planets instead. My fear was replaced with curiosity because, goddamn, this is genuinely such a good game. And there are other scary moments, getting lost in space without my ship, worrying that the sand on the Hourglass Twins is going to fill up the cave I'm wandering through and trap or suffocate me. Every moment of the DLC, which actually came with a reduced scares toggle because it was too much for some people. But the worst of it, that first introduction to Giant's Deep is over, so you don't need to be scared anymore. That's how it went for most of my first trip anyway. Because as I was exploring, eventually I realized that the bright yellow sun had turned a very angry shade of red. And is it getting bigger? Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. I realize what's going to happen. The sun is going to explode. Thanatophobia is the fear of death, and it is awful to know how close and inevitable that death is. But somehow that is still underselling things, because this isn't just about a fear of death, this is the fear of oblivion. The sun is going to explode, and it will consume everything in its path. Everybody, every planet, my ship, and me. Nothing is safe. Everything will be gone. I feel a kind of hopelessness, and so while I could try to find one last log or land on one more planet, I don't even try. I have a good view, so I just wait. Because this was my first time playing, I didn't know that I actually had quite a bit more time than I thought. So I ended up waiting minute by agonizing minute, time passing by feeling like an eternity as the countdown to oblivion inched forward. Eventually, it happened, and I could feel my mind tighten in anxiety. The sun collapsed. Then it rapidly expanded, growing and growing incomprehensibly fast. As it rushes towards me, I start backing away, but I know it's of no use. It's too late for that. It envelops me, devours me, and then